mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 5, Episode 8 of Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale, entitled Motherland. And before I get started, I want to talk about a couple things real quick. The first being, there's kind of a lot of shit I want to discuss about this episode, so I'm going to kind of move from thing to thing pretty quickly, just because I don't want this to be a 40-minute video. I like to try to keep these in between 20 and 30 minutes, and I feel like just based on the length of my notes that it's going to go on way longer if I take my time here. So I'm going to move through these notes pretty quickly. Secondly, I again want to encourage you all to follow me on social media at One Mic Network, which you can see in the chyron below. I'm going to be posting news there, any kind of updates on videos I might be doing, things that, you know, that would be better in a tweet than in a whole video. Those sorts of things. I'm going to be a lot more active on there. I live tweet combat sports over the weekend, so if you're going to be watching UFC this weekend, or if you're going to be watching Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva, any of that kind of stuff, I'm going to be tweeting about that on Saturday, so you can follow me to talk about that as well. And then lastly, I want to encourage you all yet again to check out the Patreon. There's a video in the videos feed called Major Announcement that breaks down the Patreon tiers, how much they cost, what you get for them. And they also, there's also a link to the Patreon in the episode description below. So real quick, let me shout out my patrons. So shout out to Delvin Cox, Brett Factual, Dez, Justice Smith-Williams, Brian Turner, Dancing Lights, Margaret Moffett, Esther, and the newest patron, Adam Weiss. So let's get to talking about this episode. Like I said, I want to move through this stuff a little bit quickly because there's a lot I want to discuss. And what I think is interesting about this episode is that this is one of those episodes that it doesn't have like some huge, big, dramatic moment that we can all talk about and discuss, but there's a lot of small ones and ones that I think are going to make for really lively discussion. Like, you know, whose side are you on? What would you do if you were presented with this choice in these circumstances? Those kinds of discussions. And I really like when shows constantly give you intellectual talking points. You guys can engage in the comments. I can engage in with you. You can, water cooler talk, your Facebook, whatever the case may be. This episode, I think, presented both sides of several arguments, and it's one of those situations where both sides are have a bit of truth, have a bit of validity to them, but also both sides can be wrong and kind of shitty. So, starting with the title, Motherland, this is referring to New Gilead. New Gilead. That's what I think is actually going to end up being, by the way. New Bethlehem, which is a safe haven for current refugees in Canada, where they can come and reunite with loved ones in Gilead without the fear of Gilead reprisal or having to relive that Gilead life. This will help Gilead on the world stage too. One of Lawrence's plans with this is to kind of like use this New Bethlehem, this like safe haven, as a way to present Gilead in a way that's a little bit more acceptable for the UN as well. So like this is part of a long-term play by Lawrence that both has some good to it, but still kind of has some evil to it, where it's like he wants to kind of like replace America. But we're going to get into Lawrence a little bit later, because I'm going to kind of like break this down via the topics that I want to discuss. So I do have a topic portion specifically for Commander Lawrence, but I want to start with the Canadian protesters because I feel like this is something they've kind of been planting seeds for throughout the course of the last couple seasons. And we've seen these people, this unrest, but it's really starting to escalate at the end of this season. And, it's one of those subplots that's been so minor that I believe that I have yet to mention it in any of my previous videos. But in this episode, we see the protesters outside of June's house. They're walking around, being really loud, disturbing to people inside the house, putting graffiti on the sidewalk, which I love that Moore and June can clean it easier because they're used to cleaning blood off the walls in Gilead. Well, I don't love that. That's terrible. But I love that as an explanation. Like Luke's just being like his normal corny self. Like, oh man, you guys are way better at this than I am. Like you guys are great. I'm not good at cleaning sidewalks. You ladies are great at it though. Like he's totally being like lame ass, corny ass Luke. And then she's just like, yeah, because we're used to cleaning blood off the walls in Gilead. Like it just goes totally dark in that situation. But they got people riding around in pickup trucks with Canadian flags, shouting at them, driving close real fast, trying to scare them. And I'm just sitting there like, what does this remind me of? Oh yeah, right here, the fucking America, right the fuck now. Like, this show Canadians behaving like tried and true Americans, spewing hate at anyone who is different from them because they believe that we live in this, that we operate in this zero-sum game where anything that minorities or anyone other than you, anything that they gain must have been taken away from you. Like, there's not enough resources to go around. So if you're a black person or an immigrant in America and you start to come up, well, that must be coming out the white man's pocket. We can't have that. And that's how Canadians are acting here. They're acting like Americans. Like, we got to get these fucking Gilead refugees out of here. They took our jobs. You know, that kind of shit. Like, it's fucking terrible. And it's interesting to see that at play. And I'm wondering what the show is going to do with that. Because right now it still feels like it's kind of just, I guess, making for a more robust environment. Like, we have a better understanding of the environment that Luke, June, Moira, and Rita are living in. So that way, when you're presented with this, hey, here's New Bethlehem with these nice, fancy planned unit development houses off the water, and then you can see your kid, and it's wonderful. Like, you can have that, and you can kind of juxtapose it if you're us as the viewers, with them cleaning hateful graffiti off the sidewalk and having hate language spewed at them. It's like, okay, well, we can stay here and deal with this, or we can go to the nice, pretty putt off the water where I can see Hannah again. So it helps with that, but I think it needs to be a little bit more than that, and I'm wondering if these Canadian protesters are going to get a little bit more wild and make things a little bit more dramatic. Now I'm going to move on to talking about Lawrence. And he brings the other commanders to New Bethlehem to kind of sell them on this idea, right? And they seemed hesitant until Nick mentions Commander Putnam's hesitancy. And one of the guys immediately changes his opinion. Like, look, I know 5 seconds ago I said I wasn't with this, but all of a sudden I've been thinking about it and I realized you were right, Commander Lawrence. Like, I like that. I like that. It just a mere mention of Putnam made that guy fall in the line. I thought that was wise by Nick to play that card. Lawrence then meets with June to sell her on coming back. You know, at the end of the scene with the commanders, he says he's going to go to Toronto, and sure enough, he does. And he meets up with June, and he says that her coming back will make a huge difference. You know, like, you know, well, one, it's going to make a difference. Perception-wise, you know, like someone who is a well-known refugee from Gilead feels safe enough to come back here, so you can hold that up to the UN, like, look at what we did. We got June to come back, and you know, he sells her, of course, on the idea of being with Nicole, and then he shares a bit of his past regarding the formation of Gilead, and he talks about how he planned to kind of, well, for one, it started from he had positive intentions, I guess, from his perspective. He didn't mean for it to end up what it was. And it ended up what it was because he planned on essentially taking advantage of manipulating or using like these religious zealots, but I love the phrase, he underestimated their depravity and depravity. And I think that's the perfect phrase to use, not just to describe these specific commanders in this show, but to kind of describe religious zealots as a whole. Never underestimate the depravity of a religious zealot. The harder they thump their Bible, the more likely they are to do something that I almost verbalized on this video, but felt like it might have been a little bit too far. But you know the kind of shit that a religious zealot is capable of doing. So I'm not gonna get specific, but like, never underestimate them. Like, you don't think that you can control them and manipulate and use them. No, they're always gonna be slimier than you expect. And then after this, we get the start of the Commander Lawrence hour-long stand-up comedy special that makes up a lot of this episode as well. You know, after he talks about Nicole, June says, I think twice, like I was like, just so you're clear, I could be with Nicole. Like, he's like, didn't I just fucking say you could be with Nicole? And he says, I think Canada's dulled your wits. And then he also goes, he's talking about like who he's gonna have helping him. He's like, also, I'm grooming Nick, not sexually. Like, it's funny because as soon as he said it, I was like, pause. In my head, he's like, not sexually. So I'm glad that the pause joke exists in Gilead. And even though Commander Lawrence didn't do it, he saw the opportunity He saw that he said something pause-worthy and fixed it. So I like that. And he also gives June a cell phone that she can reach him on. Now, I want to now talk about June and Luke, just because I think is a proper time to kind of talk about the back and forth that the two of them had throughout the course of this episode. And their back and forth is on opposing sides, of what they think that they should do. But what I like about these back and forths is that you can be on either person's side and be right. Like, both of them make good points, but both of them also are, I think, failing to see the other person's side. So after June and Lawrence have had June and Lawrence have had the conversation about New Bethlehem, June brings it to Luke, and this discussion gets completely out of hand. Luke says that he hates what Gilead has done to her and their family, let me put it all in one statement here. He hates what Gilead has done to her, he hates what Gilead has done to her family, and he thinks that her emotions are controlling her. Now, I also acknowledge that June has been fundamentally changed by Gilead. I've been saying it for the entirety of the time that I've had this channel. I've been saying that June is now a different person than she was prior to Gilead. Not a very profound statement, pretty obvious, but I've been saying this the whole time. But your emotions are controlling you is so diminutive and dismissive. And when you're talking to a woman who has dealt with the most extreme levels of men, men being the most toxic, depraved, chauvinistic, like whatever kind of words you could think of, the most toxic kind of male behavior, she has dealt with the most extreme levels of that toxicity. Do not fucking turn to that woman and say, you can't control your emotions. What did he say? Your emotions are controlling you. Don't be so dismissive of someone like that. So it's probably not best to hit them with one of men's shittiest greatest hits, you're being too emotional. So it's like, yes, Luke, I also hate what Gilead has done to June. I also hate what it has done to your family. It has fucked your family 6 ways from Sunday. But your emotional controlling you was like too much. So it's like, now I can't be on your side anymore. Conversely, June replies saying that of course he doesn't understand. Look what you did to Serena. And yes, Luke doesn't understand. But what did he do? What he did to Serena? Like, for real? You mean doing the plan that you guys had planned on executing on that plan? Did you forget what Serena did to you? Do you not understand that Luke has no knowledge of this sweet little moment that you decided to share with Serena in this barn? And he has no reason to call you preemptively like, hey, I've got Serena in a position to where we can fucking end her legally without killing her like yo ass wanted to do. We can fucking end her legally. I just wanted to check with you and make sure that you haven't had these special moments with Serena that are going to cause you to get mad at me. What kind of stupid fucking thing is that, June? It's a dumb fucking thing to say. So yes, again, he doesn't understand. But also, he was not wrong in how he did he wasn't wrong within the context of the show. Is it wrong to take a child away from a woman who is, whether you like her or not, fit to raise her own kid? Is that wrong morally? Absolutely. But is it wrong within the context of this situation from June's perspective, from the perspective of someone who wants to fuck over this person, historically has wanted to fuck over this person to the worst possible degree? Now the opportunity comes, he takes it, and you're gonna go, why you ain't call me? He's not gonna know. What are you doing? So I guess my point is June has no right to wag her finger at Luke for successfully executing on the plan that she had no way of knowing was now in jeopardy because of the magical moment she shared in the barn with Serena. But like I said, on the flip side, if you remove that context, yeah, it is wrong to do what Luke did. But this ain't that. This is a TV show. This ain't regular life. This is this Gilead thing don't exist here yet. So these circumstances are unique, and in these circumstances, was Luke wrong? No, he executed on the plan. That's what he did. But these nuanced conversations are what can help kind of carry these episodes. When you have an episode that doesn't have a big dramatic killing or a big dramatic moment or a drastic change in someone's circumstances for the worse, when you have these episodes that have these discussion points that can go either way, where both sides are right, it makes for more compelling television. And I think that's what this show and this season as a whole has been doing a lot better. It's almost like they know, like, this season we don't have these, a whole bunch of trains hitting handmaids moments. We don't have a whole bunch of wild deaths or all of this kind of crazy shit. Like, we don't have a ton of that, but what we do have is characters who we've spent a lot of time with grappling with these very unique circumstances. Like, okay, we're out of here now, but we still have investment in Gilead. How do we handle that? And all these different sides, all these different angles from some people who were there, others who were not, and the flipping of these roles, like the idea of like, okay, Serena and June are in the same position right now. Like, they have to decide, am I going to put myself in a shitty situation for the sake of my kid? And they're both in that situation. And that's one of those, like I said, that's a conversation topic that I think this episode is giving us when it's not giving us all of that heavy duty shit. And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate the show being able to write in these things and to make them interesting, not make me like scoff at them. Like these are valid points that are being raised. But later, June has another interesting conversation with Serena in which Serena asks for her help, of all things. And June's basically like, bitch, we ain't friends. I don't know why the fuck you think I'm going to help you out. And she says, like, I turned the other cheek in your situation. And she's like, well, I guess that makes me a better Christian than you, which is, of course, true. I've already had my miniature religious zealous rant, but you will find no shortage of examples of religious people being terrible to others off the strength of something that they read in their religious text, whatever faith that they may believe in. But Serena asked June with, again, no irony, how she's supposed to go back to the Wheelers, and she asked June for tips, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, be a handmaid? And June says to pretend to be a handmaid, but plot revenge the whole time. And I'm sitting here like, I love this moment because it's like, it's almost like a pre-threat almost. Like, it already happened, so it can't be a threat, but it's like, yeah, I was there plotting against you the whole time. I was pretending this whole time. I had revenge of the mind this whole time. And that's a scary, threatening thing to say to a person. And then, it's all left there in the subtext until Serena goes, is that what you did? And I'm like, God damn it. Like, why did you have... That was the equivalent of explaining the joke. Like, if somebody makes a joke and that one person is like, I don't get it. If you explain the joke, if you have to explain it, it's not going to be funny anymore. And that's what fucked up that scene, is her going, is that what you did? Like, yes, that's what she did. That was the whole fucking point of that sentence. And it was a lot smarter until you had Serena interject that stupid fucking rhetorical question. Like, they totally fucked that scene up. And that really bothered me. That ruined the scene to me. And it was a great scene up to that point. Whew, let me calm down. So I'm only at 18 minutes, so we're in good shape here. June and Luke argue once more about going back. After talking with Rita, June essentially makes the decision to go back. Rita's like, I wouldn't go back there, but I also don't have a kid. If I did have a kid, there'd be nothing you could do to stop me from going back. So June, I think in that moment, finally makes the decision, I am definitely down to go back. And Luke's like, nope, I don't want to go. It's not safe. I don't want to do it. It's not safe for you. I don't think it's safe. We're not doing it. And Jude says he's done fucking nothing for the last 7 years. Now, I think we've all been waiting for this to happen, for someone to kind of say, Luke, you ain't did shit. And I know that the fandom of this show is kind of, I think, divided, because they're like, okay, on one hand, did Luke storm into fucking Gilead in like a Kevlar vest, armed to the teeth, with black paint under his eyes like fucking Rambo, ready to shoot shit up to get his daughter back? No. Would I have been on that tip? Probably. But is it fair to say he did nothing? I don't think it is either. So it's like, again, you got both sides here. There are going to be people who will look at what Luke did as the equivalent of fucking nothing. And then you can look at it in a literal sense, like did he actually sit back and not do shit while his wife and daughter were having their experiences in Gilead? No, that's not true either. Did he do enough? Maybe, maybe not. But that's what makes that line so interesting, is that something that's been boiling beneath the surface among the fandom this entire time, and now it's out there, out in the open, and now people who are not me can argue about whether or not he actually did fucking nothing. I'm staying out of that shit. You're not gonna. Yeah, I'm here to make fun of Luke. I'm not gonna be here to talk about whether or not what he did during the time that June was in Gilead, whether or not what he did was sufficient. I'm staying away from that argument altogether. But you guys have at it in the comments. I'm good. But again, both sides, right? Luke's laughing at this, and he says, "We're never going to be enough for you, are we?" Now, that's also true. Like, they aren't going to be enough for her. And I've been saying that this whole time, and I think what Luke left unsaid is what I've been saying this whole time, is that June is obsessed with the fight. She's always wanted to go back. She just needed that push. Like, she's been trying to stop herself from going back this whole season. So no, Luke, you and Nicole are not good enough. She wants to fight. She wants to go back. Nothing was ever gonna, all she needed was that push. She needed something she could mentally justify it with, and New Bethlehem is her mental justification. So no, Luke, you are not enough. That is true, and that is a good point. But it's also a shitty fucking thing to say, because it implies that you should be enough. And no, Luke, you should not be enough. You two, both of you, like, Nicole ain't your fucking kid. You and June have a kid together who is 12 and about to be married to a grown-ass man off in Gilead. No, you and Nicole, you and this baby that's not your baby are not enough, nor should you be enough. Like this, so it's like both sides, man. Like, it implies that Hannah is almost like a bonus. Like, we're not enough. You got to go have this extra kid too. You gotta go back and risk it all to get this extra kid. Like no. Anyway, it's all moot for now, as Mark tells June toward the end of the episode that they have a military plan in place. They discovered her location thanks to the metadata in this video that they received of Hannah walking around, and that they're going to be doing a raid. So I'm going to be talking about that video in a moment. But now I want to talk about Serena before I wrap up. So Serena's locked up in the detention center at the beginning of the episode, pumping milk, because we find out that the Wheelers are now in custody of her son, Noah. And in one of the more infuriating scenes for me, emphasis on for me, in this entire series. Now, again, that's why I emphasize for me, because I know there's been a lot of traumatic shit on this show. But that's why I say one of the more infuriating scenes for me is when Mrs. Wheeler comes in to get this milk, and Serena asks how everything's going, and she calls Noah a stubborn little creature, and says that she's letting him cry it out because he won't take any milk out of the bottle. And let me just tell you, if it was me in the detention center, and Mr. Wheeler comes into the detention center and says, "Man, you know, Mike, your little kid, man, that stubborn little creature," he wouldn't have been able to finish the word creature, and those would have been the last words he spoke on this planet. And like, of course, you can come up with all the reasons why Serena didn't kill this woman in this moment, because I definitely would have. Like, you could come up with all the logical reasons, but I can't wrap my head around thinking, not being impulsive in that moment. Like, yeah, I could sit here and tell you why Serena shouldn't have tried to kill that woman in that moment. I could tell you why, if it was me in that situation, why it would be unwise of me to kill Mr. Wheeler if I experienced that same thing in that moment. But I can also tell you, knowing myself, if the stranger that stole my child comes in and starts to call him or her a stubborn little creature, you gonna die today, motherfucker. That's it. Now, if something happened to me afterward, so be it. But you ain't seeing daylight anymore. Like, the stubborn little creature, whatever you looking at when you say that phrase, it's the last thing you gonna see. So, like, I can't. Oh, that made me so mad. And then talking about letting him cry it out. Oh my goodness. Oh boy, I had to calm down on that one. Clearly unfit to raise a child in the eyes of Mrs. Wheeler. Ms. Wheeler also questions Serena's mental toughness, which I can't for the life of me figure out why Serena has still somehow restrained herself from killing this woman. But like I said, I can't imagine not acting impulsively during this conversation. Later, Commander Lawrence visits Serena, and he tells her basically, like, you're going back to the Wheelers. You know, they're only going to take you back because they can't deal with all this crying and shit. So you're going in there strictly to be a wet nurse. You're just going to be doing breastfeeding. That's it. She gets there and is told the exact same thing by Miss Wheeler. And she says she's not going to live with her child's kidnappers. And Lawrence delivers the line of the entire series to me. So like I said, I had the most infuriating moment of the series for me moments ago. I also had the funniest moment. He goes, do you have an irony deficiency? I mean, just beautiful, beautiful. Just a perfect cherry on top of the sundae that was Commander Lawrence's stand-up comedy special. So a couple of final questions that I want to raise, and then a couple of quick thoughts. Obviously, this whole new Bethlehem plan isn't going to go as planned. How are things going to go wrong, though? Do we trust Commander Lawrence? I mean, like June laid out a lot of reasons why we should trust Commander Lawrence. Do we trust Commander Lawrence? I kind of don't. Or maybe is he going to get killed before he can, like, say June goes over there, everything looks like it's going perfectly, and then Commander Lawrence is killed in some act of retaliation, and now June is stuck there and never gets Hannah. And now New Bethlehem becomes downtown Gilead or a new suburb. It just becomes New Gilead, and now it's the suburb. I mean, that's plausible if you ask me. I also feel like Nick has some sort of plan as well. Like, did you catch the way he was kind of like, I fucking Commander Lawrence every time he would try to, like, paint a positive picture? He's making these, like, googly eyes at him and shit. Like, I don't know. And then, like I said, the metadata from that video is how they found Hannah, and now it's prompting this raid. And I gotta assume Nick sent the video, right? And he probably sent it with the knowledge that they'd be able to use that metadata. And it just makes me wonder if Nick's little side eyes to Lawrence all kind of revolved around Nick's knowledge that, like, I ain't gonna let this new Bethlehem shit pop off. You think it's gonna pop off. I'm not gonna let it pop off. Once Serena gets back to the Wheelers' house, after she's been released from the detention center, she immediately runs up to the 17th floor and starts to breastfeed her baby. And we see literal, like, this is, again, I have 4 kids. I know what breastfeeding look like. This looks like the very true actual method of how you go about trying to get a baby to latch. And I can't help but wonder, we know that Yvonne Strahovski recently had a baby. I wonder, is that her actual baby? Because wouldn't that be weird to breastfeed like a rando baby, like on the Handmaid's Tale set, if you just had one? Like, why don't you just breastfeed your own kid? I feel like that's got to be your own kid, and I feel like one of you guys is going to read an article or something that's going to be like, and you're going to be able to comment like, yeah, that was her real kid. All right, couple of thoughts. Other people value singing way more than I do. Like, when June started singing to Nicole, I'm like, all right, it's time for my bathroom break. I can write some stuff in my notes. I don't give a fuck about this song. Like, there's a joke in The Simpsons where they call singing the lowest form of communication. That's like, I'm not joking. That's kind of how I feel. Like, this is like a I don't know. It's not the lowest form of communication in a literal sense, but for me it is. I don't care. So as soon as she starts singing, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, oh, she's singing to a baby. And I'm just like, I could turn the fucking channel. Another great line from Commander Lawrence, Gilead's gonna Gilead. Gilead's gonna Gilead. I would have never thought I would have heard such a Twitter-like reference on The Handmaid's Tale. And then lastly, no Lydia, Esther, and Janine again this week. And they even showed Esther in the previously on the Handmaid's Tale deal. I feel like this is like the 3rd week in a row we haven't got anything from them. I wonder what's going to happen there. So that's all I got. I'm wrapping up just short of half an hour like I planned. I have to edit out a very very inappropriate word I said at some point in this video. Here's a game. See if you can catch where I edited it out. I'm going to edit out any context so you can't guess what I said, but see if you can guess where I edited it out. Clue, there's probably going to be like a weird kind of like a dissolved transition somewhere in this video. So until next week for episode 9, the penultimate episode of season 4, I will see you guys then. Peace.